welcome back to the Young Professionals podcast. It's Luke and Sarge here. Sarge, who are we speaking with today?
Today we are speaking with Nicholas Pane. Nicholas is a qualified carpenter, working mainly on residential buildings in Melbourne's inner southeastern suburbs. Nicholas's pathway to becoming a carpenter is a little bit different from others. After finishing school, he began studying a journalism degree at Swinburne University. Nicholas then deferred from journalism during his first year and decided to work for his older brother's landscaping business to explore an interest he had always had, working with his hands. Soon after, Nicholas enrolled in a pre-apprenticeship course for carpentry at Holmes Glen TAFE and worked for Ben Duthie at Focus Construction. Nicholas then moved on to another outfit with Dick Reynolds to gain more specialised experience and progress towards completing his apprenticeship. Once qualified, Nicholas completed a Certificate 4 in Building and Construction at the Master Builders Association of Victoria, further developing his knowledge in the field and preparing to one day become a registered builder. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a very good rap.
Oh, thanks, mate. It's pretty easy when you've done as much as you have to give someone a rap like that. So
yeah,
it's good to have you here, mate. So you're a carpenter. Bit of a silly question. What does a carpenter actually do?
Not a silly question at all. It's like a good array of carpentry jobs. So myself, being on a domestic carpenter, specialising kind of in architectural builds, we do all frame, lock up and fix. And that's a traditional carpenter's role. So if you work primarily for a carpenter, that's what you'll do. You become really good at carpentry itself. In my personal situation, I work for a builder. So we're first on a job site, a blank slate, a pile of dirt, and I'll be there doing laser levels with the excavator drivers, digging footings, site set outs, things like that, up until assisting concreters with steel fixing, to pour day being at the pour if it's necessary, if it's required, and then all the way through to literally putting the latch on the front gate, which could come a month even after the person's moved in. So, yeah, that's it really.
It's a real end-to-end service.
Yeah, that's it. Carpenters generally are first to come, last to leave on most jobs, but builders especially are genuinely first to come, last to leave. And in the process for a builder in organising a job before it even gets not even off the ground, I was going to say before you can even put your temporary fencing up, is a very long process. A lot of the time, the client's dismay, but these things just take time to prepare, and getting all your ducks in a row basically before a job is able to start is quite a lengthy process.
And so you mentioned builders there too. What's the difference between a builder and a carpenter?
So a builder, I'll say this is my favourite phrase, a carpenter makes thousands and a builder makes millions. And so a builder oversees the whole project from start to finish. So they will liaise with all trades. They will do site inductions if necessary, or if they have middle management to take care of those things, they will organise those kinds of things as well. They're the ones that will organise the temporary fencing all the way through to site safety, and organising basically every single trade in order for the job to be completed in the best possible way. And that even includes often meetings with clients, architects, and who else was I going to say? Surveyors and that kind of thing, and inspectors. Inspectors can very quickly become your best friend or your worst enemy for the duration of some jobs, because some new builds we do take 2 years, and you have the same inspector for the whole 2 years. And if you get off on the wrong foot early, then it sometimes can be very frustrating. Adversely, carpenters, they'll work directly for a carpenter or directly for the builder, and only undertake the carpentry jobs involved, which, as I mentioned earlier, will be rock up to the concrete slab and knock up the frame for you. They'll then go away from the job. The roof will get put on. And then depending on what is being put on the walls of the house on the outside, if it's bricks, obviously you get to wait a bit longer and go to another job. Or if it's weatherboards, you'll go and do them, and then you'll move inside and do the lockup, which is straightening walls, building all different kinds of, lowering ceilings, building bulkheads. Probably a lot of fugazi to people that may be listening. But that kind of thing. And then we'll leave again. Another trade comes in. We'll do the plastering. Before that, the plumbing can all go in and that kind of stuff. And you're kind of just out of everyone's way. And then the fix begins, and that's all your finishing timbers and all that kind of stuff. Doors and that kind of stuff too. And that's really the role of a carpenter. And then obviously once job's completed, fences, random things like that. But that it gets broadened a lot when you work for a builder, because you assist in boxing up paving slabs and stuff, like simple carpentry things. Builders will do that. So I do a lot of that stuff too.
So Nicholas, it sounds like being a carpenter's, there's much more to it than just a nail and a hammer. How many jobs would you be attending, or how many work sites would you be working across in a given week? In a given week, it varies significantly. My boss specifically, Dick, has more often than not 4 to 5 jobs going at one time. So he kind of builds pretty aggressively for a small builder with only 6 carpenters underneath him. So it varies. We try our best. Sometimes it's near impossible to have jobs roll over into each other, so you're always busy, if you know what I mean. So you'll go and put a frame up while you're waiting for something else to happen. You can go and put the next frame up, then go back, begin the lockup or external lockup. Then you know what I mean. So you kind of coordinate every trade as best you can on each job. You've really got to be able to coordinate your workforce as a builder so you can maximize what you're doing.
That's what I'm going to say. That's what I'm going to say. So using all the same trades for every job really works that way. So my boss has like one concreter, and he'll just go up his concrete and say, you've got to start Johnson Street, then Stewart Street, then this street, and you've got the same plumber to go to all those different jobs as well, which is also really good, because if you can provide them with enough work, you become their only source of work. So it's much easier for them as well. They're just like, oh, well, he's going to give me work for the next 3 years. I don't have to worry about using other trades, sending other invoices, chasing up other builders for money, that kind of stuff. But in answer to your question, more often than not, it could be 2 to 3 jobs a week, kind of hopping between. So right now I'm going between Coburg and North Melbourne a fair bit. They're for the same architect as well. So same as like us using the same trades, architects, if you're good, will use the same builder on more of their jobs, because you just work well together, and there's just a lot of cohesion, and there's no confusion about how they want things done. So it's the best way to do it, in my humble.
Pane, it sounds like, and a bit of context, we know each other from when we were quite young, so if I slip in Pane there, that's what we call Nicholas normally. But it sounds like from just that description that working in, I think, any trade, say on residential or commercial builds, you're obviously working with 5 or 6 other trades on one building site at any one time. I can imagine that things like, or skills like communication, time management, being proactive in communicating what you're doing and things like that are quite essential to making things flow properly. Interested to hear, did that always come naturally to you? Is that something that you've needed to work on? And if so, how have you gone about that?
I don't know. Time management for me, shit. I want to say, I'm so good at time management back at school and compartmentalizing and all that, but really I wasn't at all good at those things. I'm very unorganized. And you learn very quickly. And I'm in a lucky position. My boss, which something I agree with. You learn quickly when you just get thrown in the deep end. That kind of happened when I became qualified, and he realised that maybe my skills were up to scratch and he could trust me more and leave me on job sites. He says, the plumber's coming, the scaffolder's coming, blah, blah, blah. Like, he knows he can leave me there now to organise these different things. In terms of time management, I'm a massive advocate for don't tell someone you are going to be quicker than you can be. Like, there are times when you might say to your boss, oh, yeah, it's only going to take me half an hour. Don't worry about it. My boss, in all honesty, he couldn't give how long it's going to take you. He only wants to know so that then he can organise the next person to come, or that he can send you to another job, whatever it may be. If that something ends up taking you 3 hours instead of half an hour, then he's going, well, what the hell is going on? Just be really realistic, know your limits. And that's it. The communication thing is massive, 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 massive. And my boss is very old school, and really he's only just started video calls. And I'm there going, why haven't we done these for the past 3 years? Like, you wouldn't have to come to job sites if all I had to do was hold my phone up to a frame and say, is this how I'm supposed to build this, just to confirm the architect's drawings are a bit ambiguous.
Oh, it's great that technology is permeating through the building industry more broadly. Like, I think Luke and I hear a lot about technology, and digitizing your core is one that I hear a lot, as cringe as that is. And it's cool to see that it's not just in a corporate space that technology is being used to help drive efficiencies. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of different building programs and platforms now to use for builders to organise trades, where it makes quoting a house like apparently 50 to 100 times quicker. Like, you do not have to sit there with a pen and paper. You just drag and drop your mouse wherever you want, and everything's done in literally half the time.
You don't use a builder's tile and pencil?
No, not anymore. Like, the scale ruler gets thrown around every now and then, but that's about it. There's not much else. But a lot of other builders, younger builders, something I plan to adopt when I become a builder will be these programs. There's one called Build Exact or something like that, and it's like immediate delivery of information to all of your trades. As soon as a client makes a change to their mind, it's just you put it through on the computer. And every trade will get an alert saying there's been an amendment to the previous drawings. These are the new drawings. Make sure you refer to these when you go to do whatever job you're doing at the job site. So it's just much easier.
Yeah, for people that are, sitting in a commerce degree or at school and doing group assignments and whatnot. If you're used to working in, say, Google Docs, and you can get 5 people on the same document all the time, that sounds like a no-brainer. But it certainly seems that in the building industry or any trade, really, like it does depend on all of those different moving parts being able to talk and communicate with each other at the same time. So from what you're saying, it's cool that there is so much innovation going on. And from that, I would hazard a guess that coming into the industry now as a junior person or a younger person, there is a lot of opportunity to embrace those efficiencies and kind of put your own stamp on, no, we're going to do something different, and it's going to be, or we're going to do it differently rather. And that's an exciting prospect, I think, for anyone that's coming through into any industry. If you can look at something that's been done that way for 50 years and think, oh, actually, I can do this better, or I can do this in a quicker way, then that's exciting and that's fun. So I would say, yeah.
I'm a big believer in being able to evolve with new practices, especially with buildings, because there are a lot of smart engineers out there that are bringing out different ways to do things in a much quicker manner. And old school builders will be like, no, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't do it like that. They don't build it like they used to, and all this serious, genuine just jargon. When in actual fact, if it's signed off by engineers and you know that it's going to execute a job that's good enough to withstand, Mother Nature and people and, inhabitants for 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, like, you should quickly adapt to your surroundings, I guess.
You should trust it. And that's something
100%.
that you touched on before in terms of your boss, Dick, trusting you with managing work sites and the different stakeholders that come through there. I think it's the same with that technology. Like we should, as you said, if the engineers have signed off on it, we should trust it and let it help us drive efficiencies.
Yeah, 100%. And then as well as what Luke was saying before, the younger people coming in and using the technology to their advantage is going to be a huge asset for them, because I think I'm slow on the phone compared to my girlfriend, and she's only 3 years younger than me. And then there's kids that are going to come in and just be like, oh, I can do that, whatever you want in terms of looking at pictures or this and that so quickly. So I think the older style builders need to adapt to that, because as much as I think a lot of builders are extremely stubborn, so they can quickly realize its benefits. Yeah,
I think that's great, and as I said before, like massive opportunity for young kids coming through to put their stamp on something and embrace new innovations, which is really exciting. Mate, taking a bit of a left turn, we'll kind of go back to the start and put yourself back in your shoes when you're in, say, year 11 and year 12. We touched on it in your bio that you started a journalism degree when you finished uni. I think it was at Swinburne, and then eventually got into where you are now, which we can dive into. But why don't you run us through what you were interested in year 12 and what kind of drove the decisions to go down the uni path as opposed to the pre-apprenticeship and get into carpentry and be as transparent as you like, because I think that this narrative that you have to go into university to be successful and get into business and whatnot, that's the only path in there is not relevant for some people, and it can be quite constraining. So keen to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I'll go back 1 year earlier to year 10 when we did work experience, and I really looked up to my godfather Jack, who has been a solicitor forever and is now a magistrate. And I just thought, oh man, this guy, he's just got it sorted. I want to be a lawyer. So he hooked me up with Rob Starry, who's one of Melbourne's best criminal lawyers, who's represented the whole underworld. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. And a week of that, I was like, this is shit. Like, I fell asleep in a committal hearing with Tony Mockbelt in it. And kids at the time, my age, probably like yourself, Luke, would be like, this is sick, edge of seat kind of stuff. And I was like, dude, it is way too hot in here, and I'm about to pass out, which I did. So that actually I thought was a failure, because I kind of thought but it was actually a good thing that I went and did that, like, because then it made me feel
learn from that experience.
100%. It made me realize, like, these guys, I don't want to say work really hard, and I don't want to do that, because now I just work hard in a different sense. But like, to me, it just seemed very mundane. Like, I was like, well, this first year or second year lawyer, he just sit there like reading into, talking into his dictaphone, is it called? Yes.
Yeah, I'll go with that, yeah.
Whatever it is, non-stop, and I didn't love it. And I thought, well, this isn't anything I want to do. And then going through year 11 and 12, I feel like pressures are put strongly on you. Sad to say this, depending on what school you go to, really. When really the curriculum, they should all just follow the same. I know they follow the same. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like guidelines, broad
guidelines.
Guidelines.
Yeah. But the way things are taught and drilled into you. What did I go to? It's a semi-private school in Melbourne, and I'd sit there in year 11, and every teacher at parent teacher interviews is saying, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do when you leave school? Because that is going to, that's what's going to affect your choices on what subjects you're going to do in year 11 and 12." And I'm there going, well, I don't really know what I want to do. And
you just knew you didn't want to be a lawyer at that stage.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'll pick one profession off out of like 60,000. Like, it could be any number of things. I don't know. And so that was kind of frustrating at the time. And I'd look at, like, sit down with my parents at the dinner table, and they're like, well, do you know what you want to do? Like, no. And it didn't faze them. So it didn't faze me. So then my thought process was, okay, just do the subjects you think are going to be easiest for you, not not
in
easy
what sense
subjects.
to get a good score, because that's what everyone told you had to do that.
Yeah. And it was more, Mum would always say, it's not the be all and end all, but if you just get a good enough score, all you need to do is give yourself options. So it's not about it being the be all and end all. Just do as best you can. If you do the best you can, then I can't knock you. So, that kind of thing. But we'd sit at assemblies and we'd hear the headmaster say the all-important ATAR score and this and that, and just go on and on and on about this ATAR score and how our life would be not worth living if we didn't get a good score. And my mum's been a teacher. I've been in the field for 30 years, I feel, on and off, obviously, for children or whatever, and bump me on my leg and say, don't listen to this. Just do not listen to it. You will try your hardest and be the best you can. If it doesn't work out that you get an incredible score, then don't worry about it. There's other ways to do things, and it's going to be fine. So I still want to make my parents proud, though. So I've written down in my notes here, I remember so clearly the day the end of scores came out. I'm sure you guys might too, because you guys did pretty well. But the end of scores came out, and I got the text message, but I was so asleep. I had been drinking the night before, and I didn't really care what my score was. And Mum ran into my room and said, what is it? What did you get? What did you get? And it was around 70. That's what it was. And I went, oh, got 70. And she was, are you happy with that? I went, what? I don't know. Haven't even had a minute to think about it. You do realise. And she kind of went out of the room, and I went back to sleep for a bit, and then I woke up and I thought, all right, well, it's lower than I guess I aimed for. So I just drove straight into the school careers counsellor and said, well, I can't remember her name, but I walked in and just said, can you please get me into a university that's close to home? I feel like it's the right thing to do. To which she said, okay, go drummers, what do you want to do? And she kind of gave me about 6 options, and journalism was one of them. And I said, yeah, cool. I'll do that with the intention of writing about sport eventually. And that is how I decided to go into journalism on a whim at the last minute. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, whenever the offers came out, I can't remember that regime, but it got into Swinburne, went there, and I thought, this is the tits. I love being at uni. This is mint. What do you mean? There's a bar open on campus all the time. Yes, this is great. I drank, I passed, and I didn't really have a care in the world. And that was uni for me, and that's how I saw my 3 older siblings go. That's what I thought anyway. Well, they went through uni and partying, and now it was my turn, and I just thought this was great. But the thing with journalism was that if you weren't doing a whole heap of extra stuff on the side and trying to get your foot in the door with, or, you handed as many pots of honey as you could in the journalism world, whether it be sport or whatever, you weren't doing enough. And I remember this kid so clear. I still remember his name. He came up to me and his name is Tom Pollock, and he was a student res kid from the country. And he goes, so how are you going with your blog? And I went, what? He said, how are you going with your blog? I said, what blog? He goes, well, everyone in the class has a blog. I'm like, do they? He goes, yeah, I've been going to all the local footy games and writing about the local football. And I was like, no, I haven't done that once. And then I went to myself, nor do I want to. Like, why would I? No thanks. I was happy just working with for my brother a couple of times a week, and just getting by. And I was 18, 19. I didn't see why it was an issue for me to start want to say, start living my adult life before I felt like
still
I was
a
ready to
teenager,
start
mate.
yeah, exactly. Before I was ready to start living my adult life. So that's when I thought, okay, this clearly I'm wasting my time here, and I could potentially be wasting a lot of money here too.
And just to jump in quickly, like I think it's important to note that your story, I'm guessing, will resonate with a lot of people, and there's parts of it that resonate with me in terms of the being so focused on getting a good ATAR score and how much that can really muck with your perception on how you've done at, say, school or anything, when you're always comparing yourself to other people. If they do better than you, then you kind of feel really bad about yourself, and that's not a good thing, even though you might have done well. But I'm interested to point out that you say that, I wasn't ready to go and do the blog and do all those things that are, my adult life. But because other people, that doesn't necessarily mean that the other people that were doing that stuff and really interested in that stuff, that's a bad thing. It's just that they were really
100%.
interested in that. And I think this is a conduit that helped you realize that actually I'm not interested in that, and that's fine. And the people that are interested in that, that's cool too. But I'm going to go and find out what I am interested in, do that.
I was kind of sitting back going, oh, all power to you, man. You clearly want to be a sports journalist. I thought I did. But you really want this. And I clearly did not really want that. So as a result, I just deferred my course with the intention of potentially getting into something else. That's why I didn't completely drop out. I thought, I'll just defer. We'll just see what happens. Maybe I'll change my mind. I'll just go work for Joey, my brother, for a few weeks. In a few weeks, turned into quickly buy a ute that you can fit a lawnmower in the back of. And then I just went around mowing lawns. On occasion, I'd help him. We do concrete pours. We do landscaping. And I really liked the trade life. Kind of cliche, living the tradie life. It sounds ridiculous, but it's a thing, and a lot of people are envious of it. And the crisp cold mornings end up in sunny days, and getting home at 3:30, 4 o'clock. It really does have its moments. So that's good. But I kind of told my parents I'm going to work for Joseph and get him to put me through the ringer for 6 months. So we'd work in the summer till like 8 o'clock at night, pushing the mower just because the sun was up. And
lawns need to be mowed, mate.
And I didn't give a shit. I was getting paid hourly, man. I didn't care. He was like, let's do one more. And then it got to a stage, obviously, I'd get frustrated. Like, I don't want to do anymore. But, he paid me. And sometimes it'd be like, I can't pay you for 2 weeks. And it just was better for me. I just got paid a bog lump sum of money when I was like 19, 20 years old. What am I going to do with money at that? You know what I mean?
On that, Pane, I would imagine that going back to your, shadowing that lawyer example, if you were asked to sit in a law firm doing documents until 8 a.m. and someone keeps saying, just do another one, I'll pay you, I would imagine that the response would have been quite different. So would it be safe to say that you'd found something that you were actually getting a bit of fulfillment out now, and that started to start that train of thinking?
Yeah. Correct, and it was the physical energy output. The youngest of 4 kids. I am very loud, very rambunctious, I guess is the word. Like, I never sat still as a kid, and I'm the same now. So being out, using my hands and my feet all day just seems like the right thing to do. So then once I'd worked for Joseph, I kind of thought, well, I need to choose a trade. That's what I need to do. I'm destined to do a trade. That's what I think is going to be the best thing for me to do. And then I sat back and I thought about this very, very carefully. And this is kind of the first time in my life, I reckon, where I actually thought about making a good decision, really. You know what I mean? And you sit back and you go, okay, I could be a Sparky. Yep. Electricians earn good money. It's very light work in comparison to other trades. So that's an option, but limited in your creativity, very limited in your creativity. And also you don't learn as much of other trades just being an electrician, in my humble opinion. The other one was a plumber. And initially I thought, well, they also earn good money, but you can't chew your fingernails and you spend a lot of time digging holes. But that was also an option. And then I thought, carpentry, and this was like the light bulb went off for me. And I was like, well, you get to see the fulfillment of seeing the structure built is what I get out of it. That's why I do what I do now. And that's why I'm almost getting emotional. That's why I love what I do. You know what I mean? Like, I just finished like this ridiculous, stupid roof this architect wanted to build, but then you sit back and you go, oh, well, I built that. Like, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean?
It's tangible. You see it.
Yeah, exactly. And it creates happiness. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go and do carpentry. So from there, I enrolled in a pre-apprenticeship, and it was the start. Must have been the start of 2013. Yeah, we finished in 2011. Yeah, so the start of 2013. Did a pre-apprenticeship. My brother, who I built a bridge with him, and he was happy for me to go and do this. He bought me a hammer and a level for Christmas that year, and from then now I'm still using the same hammer. And I went and did my pre-apprenticeship at Holmes Glen TAFE.
So what's a pre-apprenticeship? Can you walk us through that kind of setup? And it's not as if you can just rock up to a carpenter's office and say, can I have a job? What's the qualification system like, as opposed to, I think a lot of people listening will understand loosely what an undergraduate course is at uni, and then you can go on to a grad program or whatever. What's the pre-apprenticeship? What's the apprenticeship, and how do you then get a job out of that? A
pre-apprenticeship is essentially, you can do it in vet or VTEL in year 12, in year 11, I think. So if you do it in year 11 and 12, it's just because you only do it once a week or whatever it might be. It takes a longer period of time. So you basically do a series of skills, and it's basically preparation to get you on a job site, so that when you go on a job site, you don't know what, a screwdriver doesn't, you know what it looks like, and you know where basics. To get literally the basics, how to use a tape measure, and it was as simple and mundane as that on the first day. I remember like it was yesterday. And you learn basic hand tool skills and that kind of thing. And that, I think, it was like $1,200, that course. And I was like, well, this seems like a better money well spent. But it was also $1,200 and 6 months long, and it's 7:30 till 4 every day. So 5 days a week. So this, if you thought, I could be a tradie, if you got through that, in my opinion as well, you could get there on time and do that, and you weren't even getting paid a penny. Then clearly something's going right, and you're happy to give up that amount of time and pay for that. Then, so you go and do that, and that was good.
So just for a bit of context as well, and I understand a little bit about this because my brother's kind of going through the process at the moment, but you get your pre-apprenticeship, but you don't have to do a pre-apprenticeship to get an apprenticeship. But basically you go through this kind of 6 month-ish course to get the basics, and then it's kind of on you to go out and find a builder, a carpenter that will take you under their wing to have a 3 or 4 year period where you go through an apprenticeship.
Correct. That's exactly right. So they kind of the teachers drum into you in your pre-apprenticeship, put some feelers out there. Maybe go to a couple of job sites, ask if you can push a broom for a couple of days and have a look at what's going on. And that was literally it. And then other builders may come in to the TAFE and say, I need an apprentice. Does anyone want a day or two? I'll put my hand up straight away.
It's kind of, I think people that have a network or know some family friends that know a builder or something like that, putting the feelers out is, that's fine. But say someone is coming through year 12 now and thinking about going to a pre-apprenticeship and whatnot, but doesn't know anyone, what are some strategies that they could employ to go and, as you said, like rocking up to a building site and just asking to push a broom around might be one.
That's 100%, that is one. Builders love, if you have a strong desire to learn, they don't care about your ability as such. If you are there and you really want to learn, then they can't, take that away from you, you know?
That attitude.
And that's right. And the other thing is punctuality. If someone, a young guy, came up to one of our job sites and my boss was there, we'd say, "How you going?" And present yourself well, not like a drop kick. Walk up, you know, shake his hand firmly and say, "My name is this. I'm looking at doing a trade. I actually don't know if I want to do it. Would you be able to give me a couple of days? I'm happy to do it unpaid for 1 or 2 days." There's no way they would say no. How can they say no to a set of hands for free for a couple of days? And quickly, if they see your desire to want to be there and your desire to put in the work, then this, you know, the stepping stone is basically set. And from there you can kind of move up and yeah. But even phone calls are also good. Text messages and emails, I think, are very I don't know. There's a lot of people skills involved in being on a job site, and you're talking to each other a lot of time, and confidence comes with being able to pick up the phone and say, "Here I am." But then, you know, obviously the level above is going and putting face to face. So I think phone calls and face to face meeting is 100% what you need to do.
On that, like, what advice would you have for a student who's currently at school, who's thinking about doing building and maybe wants to learn a bit more about the industry, or is thinking about trying to secure an apprenticeship with someone like Dick?
Trying to expose yourself in the field as much as possible. If you don't know anyone, which I sometimes find hard to believe because there's that many traders and builders out there at the moment, it's ridiculous. But if you don't, you really, job sites that you walk past, just knock on the door.
And
Go in there.
With that, Pane, I think you're clearly someone who rambunctious and keen to talk to people. Yeah. And we've always known you as the person that is, you know, the life of the party and the center of the circle in terms of people talking. So it seems like it comes quite naturally to you. But for speaking as someone who, I guess, you know, when I was growing up, I was a bit more introverted than extroverted. It was quite hard to put myself out there. And I think being a bit of a, I don't know, a nutcase about getting better at stuff. Some things that I tried to do to practice this stuff was when I was younger is, you know, go into a cafe, or if you're going to a shop or whatever, where you would have a normal interaction with someone, it's, you know, ask a couple more questions in that interaction just to practice talking to someone that you don't know. Even at school or at uni or whoever, a mate's parents, something like that. Just practice being a better conversationalist, and that'll give you a bit more confidence to, as you say, go up to a random work site and talk to someone that you don't know. Yeah.
Well, I would say nothing, you don't get good at anything without practice. And like you can practice your personal skills, I feel like, in day-to-day life quite simply. Someone that doesn't want to go on, find out more about trades, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but watching TV shows like Grand Designs, that was like, I felt like all I did in school holidays a lot of the time. Sometimes, you know what I mean? The Block, all different kinds of shows like that, and you see how things get done, and, you know, now I see what they do there and think about how they could be doing it so much better and so much more efficiently. But that's just me. They're obviously inexperienced home renovators, but watching shows like that would help as well. If you're not too keen on putting yourself out there on a job site. But ultimately, I would say it's the easiest way to get your foot in the door. So the easiest way for you to do that would be practice your personal skills before you rock up to a job site. But yeah.
Man, I think you've given us a really good wrap of, you know, one, what a carpenter does and what they do day to day, and your journey to where you kind of are now. But before I've got a couple of questions I want to wrap up on in a sec, but let's take a sec to understand kind of where you're at in that carpentry apprenticeship phase. And I understand you're off it, or you've been qualified for a little bit now. What's the next step for someone that you said, you know, wants to start earning millions instead of thousands? What do you do about that?
So someone like me, you really need to, I noticed you want to upskill. as much as you can, which sometimes can be a bit difficult, but different agencies like Master Builders Association of Victoria and stuff like that offer diplomas and certificate fours in building construction, and they will give you a much broader knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes before homes get built or buildings get built or whatever it may be. So as soon as I finished my apprenticeship, I enrolled in a certificate for in building construction in BAV, as you mentioned earlier. And that was an extensive course. I think that was that might have been a year or 6 months, and that was intense. That was so much harder than I thought it was going to be. The first module was estimating principles, and the folder was the most cumbersome thing I've ever seen. I am into it up my eyeball, to my eyeballs.
But what's the premise of this cert for that you're doing? Is it learning more about the business side of things, or?
Yes. So they'll teach you legal obligations of a builder and different safety measures that you need to put in place. So this was essentially, you do this to prepare yourself to one day become a builder. And I did it when I was really young, so I will probably have to do different little refresher courses. That's probably my next step. So yeah, that's what you want to do if you want to go and become a builder. Like, sure, if you love carpentry and you're happy in your carpentry bubble, the issue with that is the earning capacity is limited. There's a cap to it essentially, because you pay can only increase so much, because then eventually at the end of the day you're still just a carpenter. You haven't bettered yourself enough to warrant being paid more money. So I sat back and said, I want to be a builder one day. I want to do what Dick's doing. That's why I did my certificate 4. With that, you don't have to complete a Cert 4. It's just beneficial for your own knowledge. So if you want to become a builder now, you can do it just on 3 years experience, qualified experience in the field. So I have that now. And the next step for me with my boss's assistance is putting together a portfolio of all the jobs that I have run from the start to finish to outline to the committee that I'm able to undertake these practices without help, essentially.
And that's another thing, right? Like when you actually become is it registered builder or a qualified builder?
Registered, yeah.
Registered, you need to essentially go in front of a standing committee and put your case forward to them.
So you sit in front of I think it's a panel of 5, and they basically grill you. So I'm a carpenter and have been for, 7 years, or even more, 8 years now. And they will not ask me one question about carpentry. They'll sit there and say, okay, talking about homeowner's warranty insurance. Tell me what yours is. Tell me what you need. Talking about your public liability needs.
The questions are much more commercially geared.
Oh, yeah, because they get guys going in there that go, yeah, I can slap frame in 2 days. And they're like, okay, great. So what happens if an old lady walks past your job site and trips over? Oh, I don't know. Like,
it's the running the business side of things and being more cognizant of just the skill, but how the whole operation comes together and what you're really liable for, I guess. Oh, mate, it sounds like a very, once you get into the industry, it sounds like one that is really built on, as you said, trust and loyalty. And if you work hard and are a good person to other people, then they will reciprocate that down the line when any of you need that. Mate, just before we wrap up, I think we've touched on a lot, and I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot of things from that. But to put it simply, and this might be putting you on the spot a bit, but if you had a billboard where you could put one thing that thousands or millions of young people in high school could see as a bit of advice, what would you really say to them in terms of decision making and not taking on what other people tell them they have to be thinking about? What should really be the thing that's driving decisions for young people?
A little motto: comparison is the thief of joy. Do not compare yourself to anyone else when you are looking to enter the workforce. You see your mates want to become lawyers or work in commerce, and you may sit back and go, I just want to be a personal trainer. Don't compare yourself to them. Let yourself and find your natural path. And I implore people to not stress about not knowing what they want to do when at the age of 16 or 17 or 18, because it's really not fair that those kind of pressures are put on people at such a young age, especially in the current world we live in, where mental ill health is more prominent than ever. And now we want to throw another spanner in their works and say, well, if you don't know what you want to do, then you're in trouble. That's not the case at all. I would say comparison is the thief of joy. So just not worry about what others around you are doing, and let yourself, take your natural progression and find your career in that manner.
I think that's really good advice, Pane. I think that just to recap for everyone, that life isn't a competition, and we should focus on the things that are important to us, and to make sure that what we're doing, we're enjoying, and not compare that to anyone else.
Correct. 100%.
So, Nick, I'd just like to thank you for coming on the show today. We've really enjoyed learning about carpentry, and look forward to seeing you hopefully building a house soon.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate.